Hello, this is going to be our introduction and background video for the Oresteia by Aeschylus. This is a play in 3 parts, including Agamemnon, Choephori, and Eumenides. We will be covering topics like the background, history, production history, and themes, and like the major key points for our plays. And we are the presenters, Giselle Paz, Michelle Walling, and Sadie Christensen. Thank you.
So for this series, we have 4 parts. We have our background and history, and then we have the 3 separate plays themselves that will be separate videos, but in a YouTube playlist for your ease of watching. So please enjoy.
Okay, so I will be covering the playwright, the history and politics, and the reception of the play. Next. So Aeschylus, he was born in 525-24 BC, and he died about 456 BC. He lived to a reasonable old age in ancient Grecian times. He lived to be about like 64-ish years. He was born in Eleusis, Greece, a city a few kilometers northwest of Athens. And he and his 2 brothers fought in the Persian Wars, and Aeschylus fought in the Battle of Marathon as well as the Battle of Salamis. The Battle of Marathon was definitely turned into, it was like glorified, and that's where obviously where we get the word marathon, and from that cool story about the messenger who ran the full marathon to deliver his message that the battle was won. Previous to him, Greek drama was limited to just one actor, the protagonist, but he introduced more than just the singular actor and chorus. He introduced multiple actors. They were known as the deuteragonist. Aristotle says in his Poetics, Aeschylus reduced the chorus role and made the plot the leading actor. Actually, in their time as well, violence wasn't performed on stage, and that's actually like pretty important for our play because it is quite violent. And if it were performed, I guess as true to the original as if it were performed in the same time as it was like made, there wouldn't be any violence on stage. It would just be the dialogue and conversation describing, and Michelle will go more into detail with like how the plays were performed in the day and the backgrounds as well, but kind of cool fact. Next. So the reception of the Oresteia, he actually wrote 70 to 90 plays, which is really insane. And only 7 of those tragedies have survived. They're categorized in the category of tragedy, but it's not. Anyways, the Persians, 7 against Thebes, Suppliants, Oresteia, and Prometheus Bound. One account, perhaps based on the official lists, assigns Aeschylus 13 first prizes or victories. This would mean that well over half of his plays won, since sets of 4 plays rather than separate ones were judged. This is also interesting because the Oresteia itself is one of the first like trilogies kind of made in the ancient Greek times. And yeah, there were initially 4 plays that were performed when he had presented it, the 4th being Prometheus, or not Prometheus, it's Proteus. Proteus is the lost play that would have gone accompanying the Oresteia, and it actually would have been a satyr burlesque, which is kind of like a comedy, and I'm not really quite sure what that entails. I don't really know, but that would be fun to watch right after seeing such tragedy and like violence of the Oresteia. Probably like a little like, I don't know, comedic relief. But anyways, the reception was well, and he actually won, I think, first prize for this one as well. I think that pretty much covers my sections. Thank you.
All right. I'm Michelle. I'll be going over production history, all that fun stuff. So for how it was originally performed, way back in the day, way before our time, the ancient Greece did not have indoor theater with, nice air conditioning, comfy seats, snacks, all the luxurious enjoyments we enjoy today. They were outdoors, and they had to sit on wood or stone, basically bleachers on the slope of a hill, and their stage as well was mostly stone. For scenery and like fun elements like that, they had a skin, or a structure that could represent any building that's used in the play. Usually these structures are permanent. You can't really move them, so that's why they are very versatile, and like they didn't paint them usually. They were just stone and they could represent whatever. They also used rolling platforms for special effects, showing bodies, bringing out new props. And then they had this kind of like crane that was used to lift players into the air for dramatic effect as well. That way it's not all boring. They had to have their fun and their time with what they had. Other ways this has been performed, you have theater where, many playwrights have adapted or have based their work on this play. You also have opera, ballet, and music, where several composers have written music about various different parts, or have been inspired by it in some way. And it's super cool to like listen to that and like try to figure out like, oh, what part is this inspired by? It's really, really cool. One of the coolest things I found out was for radio, BBC did a broadcast for 3 weeks of the entire Oresteia in 2014. And it was very popular. People really liked it. And they have the whole radio thing where they had like actors chosen out and the actors were like acting it out. Even though you couldn't see them, but like you could feel the energy, and it was really cool from what I've read. For cinema, an Italian poet and filmmaker, Pier Pasolini, planned to make a version of this set in an unnamed African colony. Um, Unfortunately, like it didn't end up happening for some reason, but that would have been a really cool concept. Other things that have happened are poetry, like popular songs, not just like musical, like background composers, like people made like, as we know, like pop songs or that kind of music to it. Really, that's really, really cool. Um, it's really fun to see what people can come up with out of this, especially since it's so old and we all love mythology. So especially me, I love mythology. So have really enjoyed delving, diving into this. For production photos, I have found various ones because I wanted to see like what have people done with it? What have people explored, experimented with? So this first one on the left is an actor during dress rehearsal during the Vienna Festival in 2011. And then the middle one is a Shakespeare company, and their production, also with the bottom left, that's also one of theirs. I like the bottom left. You can see the cool scenery. Like it's really interesting what they've done with the really, really tall doors and the windows like on fire, but the fire is like the cloth. I think it's very fascinating and clever. For this outdoor scene, top right, that is in Greece, for the National Theatre of Greece, and that was their production of it in one of the more traditional ancient Greek type theaters, as I was telling. And for this bottom right one with the scary men and their creepy faces, still creeped out by it. These are the chorus of old men of Argos, for the Oliver Theatre, National Theatre, in London. All right, Seti?
Awesome. Okay. So I'm Seti. I'm going to do like the themes, structures, and ideas. So we found 4 within this trilogy. So unfulfilled family nurturing, revenge, justice, and violence is always wrong. Next, please. So here's a little bit of a family tree just to try and get your brain oriented. So the trilogy usually mostly focuses on the bottom right. So Agamemnon, Clytemnestra, and their three kids. But just to give a little bit more history and background to the kind of family that this was, Thyestes and Atreus, their grandfather, was a son of Zeus, and he killed his son and fed him to the gods to see if they were really all knowing. And the gods found out, they were really appalled, and they sent him to the underworld to be tortured. And then they brought back his son back to life, but the son was kind of a lot. So that grandfather was Tantalus, and this son was Pelops. And Pelops really wanted to marry this girl. She was the daughter of a king, so he challenged the king to like this chariot race and paid a servant to sabotage it. So the king died, and he killed the servant so that the servant wouldn't say anything. And the gods marked the family with the previous generation, and then the curse was officially like put upon the family for this one. So then we have Atreus and Thyestes. They killed their half brother and got banished, and then there was a whole event where Atreus retook the throne, and then he finds out that Thyestes is having an affair with his wife. So he wants to get revenge, and he kills Thyestes' sons and cooks them, and has Thyestes eat them unknowing. Then he taunts him, reveals the truth, and Thyestes was sentenced to exile because he ate human flesh. So he consulted an oracle who said that he should have a son with his daughter, who would then grow up and kill Atreus. And so he does, and the mother, his daughter, is really ashamed and abandons the child, but he grows up, Aegisthus grows up and actually murders Atreus, like the oracle said that he would. So now we get down to Agamemnon and Clytemnestra. Agamemnon angered Artemis because of an event with a sacred deer. So on their way to war against Troy, think Helen of Troy, he needed to make a sacrifice in order to please her. So he sends for his eldest daughter, Iphigenia, who, under the false pretense that she was going to get married to Achilles, goes to her father, and her mom's like, you shouldn't go, but she goes anyway. And he and his men kill her as a human sacrifice to Artemis, and it works. And at the beginning of Agamemnon, which is the first play of the trilogy, the chorus says, her pleading, her shrieking for her father, the girl's short life, those were worth nothing to the lovers of battle, her judges. So that kind of helps paint the picture. So Clytemnestra finds out that her daughter was killed, and she's really upset about it, and decides to have an affair with Aegisthus, Agamemnon, her husband's cousin. And Agamemnon comes home with a concubine called the prophetess Cassandra, and Clytemnestra murders him and says that she was gladdened when his blood splattered on her. So Orestes wants to get revenge and justice, and that's kind of where the main plot point of Oresteia kind of takes place, is the revenge and the justice and who's killing who and is it worth it and why and violence kind of a thing. So if we can just go back one slide to the kind of pillars. So we have unfulfilled parental nurturing, because there was constant anger, fighting, hatred, a false sense of duty, and they're very tightly intertwined with the killing. It's not just like some distant land that everybody hates. Then there's revenge to its fullest extent, all the way to murder, all the way to incest, all the way to cooking their children, because their goal just consumed their worlds to get revenge. Then there's justice. Every one of the family members, excluding Orestes, did what they did. Honored and observed, and their family curse is broken. And then finally, violence is always wrong. You cannot justify or reason away atrocities of human violence, even in war. They're inexcusable. Even when they tried to justify it by dehumanizing each other through the violence, it's still wrong. In The Lust to Annihilate, Aeschylus says, Aeschylus' purpose in setting the act of cannibalism as the dark background against which the events of the play take place is to make a connection between all forms of human aggression so that none of them may be excused from censure. So it's not about this form of violence is better than this one because that one is worse. It's all of them are equally evil. All of them will always be bad, and there's not an excuse because they'll always be that way. So if we can go forward to, I think, there we go. So here's our discussion question. We'd love to hear your thoughts about the background, a theme or idea that you thought was interesting, or what you're looking forward to when we see it, or something about the synopsis that you really liked. But we'd also love to hear your thoughts. If you want to choose a character and describe what you think their fashion sense would be, or you can tell us what you think their Pinterest board might look like, just to get a better understanding of these people and if they are adapted into modern forms, or who you think they would be in this modern time. I think the next slide is our sources. And then the next slide is thanks for watching. So this is the first video. Check, you did it. And then the other 3 are going to be in the playlist of the synopsis of each of the 3 plays that make up the trilogy. So thank you so much for watching. We'll see you in the next video.
Yay!
Thank you.
Cut the cameras. That was really good.
That was really
Yay!
good.
Go